We have the privilege of hearing from House Majority Leader, Representative Harry Niska is on the line with us here. Representative Niska, how are you? Is it still morning? How are you this morning?
It is still morning. It's great to be here with you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, down here in the basement in the KNSI studios at Leighton Broadcasting in St. Cloud, it's easy to lose track of what time it is after a few hours. But I'm glad to have you on, and I'm glad to hear from you. I just wanted to, I just saw you at the CD6 convention. By the way, were you a delegate there, or were you there as a guest?
No, I'm a delegate from my BPOU.
Excellent. I thought the meeting went off pretty much without a hitch, but it was good to see you there. And it made me think, While I'm subbing today, why don't we get Representative Niska on the line to talk a little bit about, hot news from St. Paul. What is on your mind today? What's going on down there? What would you like our listeners to know about the work that you're doing down in St. Paul these days?
Well, we've got a tough slog ahead of us. Obviously, we have a DFL governor here still in Minnesota, although I don't know where he's at exactly, but he still has veto power, and we have a DFL Senate, and we, instead of having a majority in the House, which we were hoping for, we are in a tie, and so we have, we're working hard in the trenches to try to reduce the budget from, the bloat that happened the last biennium, but we need to do it in a way that gets some Democrats along with us. And that's obviously not going to be a perfect solution for anyone from our perspective, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to end up with some pretty significant wins. We're going to end up in a spot where we're going to have probably the biggest budget cut from one budget to the next in Minnesota history. Obviously not as far as we would like it to go, but also, some significant pullback from some of the excesses of the last 2 years. And really what we're doing in Minnesota here is we're just trying to prevent the state from going completely off the rails, so Minnesotans can really make a decision in 2026 about which direction they want the state to go. Do they want the state to go in the further direction the Democrats want to take it, of more control in St. Paul, more division among our and more bureaucrats in control of your life, or do you want Minnesotans to be in control of their own lives and be empowered to take control of their lives? That's the choice that Minnesotans are going to have to make in 2026. But in the meantime, we're trying to, keep bring the budget back under control, solve that $6 billion budget hole that Democrats have created for us in the next budget, at least make some progress on it. And that's what we're hard at work doing here in St. Paul.
Awesome. I know it's a thankless job. I got to tell you, going down there every day and, rather than being able to, push the legislation that you really want to, or maybe it would be better said to roll back the bad legislation that you'd like to roll back, and not being able to do that and just standing in the breach, trying to keep the Democrats from running roughshod, because that's what we had in the previous session, is they just got to do whatever they wanted. At least now, if we get a little bit of gridlock, I remember when the election happened, I told friends, look, if what we have now is total gridlock in the House, I'll take it, because that's better than what we had before we were getting steamrolled.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And just one example, they have this constitutional amendment they want to pass, what they call the Equal Rights Amendment, but it's really erasing women and putting control in the courts instead of in the legislature on all kinds of issues like women in sports and women in prison. They tried to pass that. They were able to pass it out of the House, after midnight, the last day of the session last year. Well, this year it's stuck in committee. So those are the kinds of things that just aren't even moving right now. But we did have several weeks where we were able to control the agenda and show Minnesotans what we would pass, things like protecting girls and women's sports, things like funding pregnancy centers so women can have a real choice about what they want to do with their pregnancy, things like shedding light on the fraud that's going on in the state of Minnesota. And time after time, Democrats blocked us from being able to actually pass those things because we only have 67 votes and we needed 68 to pass a bill. So we were able to show Minnesotans some of the responsible governance that Republicans would have if they would bring if we were in control and had the ability to do it. So that was important to be able to do that. But now as we're trying to prevent, the damage that would happen from a continued growth of government, we're just doing our best to trim back, to pull back Minnesota back from the brink, to start to reduce that deficit that's coming in the next biennium, and doing the best we can in a situation where Democrats also have 67 votes and can prevent us from passing anything on our own. Now,
you talked about you're looking forward to budget cuts. The Democrats are going along with budget cuts? That sounds out of character.
Well, they are, because they see that this looming $6 billion deficit that they created by spending the entire $18 billion surplus, raising taxes, and that still wasn't enough to fund their growth in government. They tried to grow the government by 40% one biennium over the other, and the numbers just don't work. And even Governor Walz has to acknowledge that the numbers don't work. So his solution is to try to punish all the people who didn't vote for him in Greater Minnesota, or private and charter school kids, or counties, nursing homes, trying to slash their budgets, and Republicans are trying to trim responsibly and have a sustainable budget going forward. But we are going to have, at the end of this, a very significant budget reduction. And the reason is that Republicans just aren't going to vote for raising taxes. Democrats' solution every single time is to raise taxes. They want to have a new fifth-tier income tax. They want to, Governor Walz wants to raise sales tax. And Republicans have just said no. So they understand that reality. We have 67 votes. They can't raise taxes without our support. And so they're going to have to agree to budget cuts.
Yeah, well, that is, any way you cut it, no pun intended, that is exciting to hear. If the budget can be cut, that's a step in the right direction. Well, okay. And by the way, we know that obviously the Democratic... Here it is. The Democratic Coalition of Satan Worshippers are obviously a big fan of Governor Walz. Did you hear about that?
I did hear about that. I saw there's some monument here. I'm worried about when Governor Walz is actually going to be back in the state and might be able to hear directly from them, or from any Minnesotans, frankly. He's all over the country. We've got a lot of work to do here in the state of Minnesota. I hope he'll come back and do the work.
Yeah, well, it would be nice if he stepped up to the plate and did his job. So he's out campaigning. He hasn't officially announced a presidential bid, has he? I know there's rumors.
Not that I've heard.
Yeah.
Well, he's all over the country instead of here in Minnesota, trying to help us solve this budget problem and pull us back from the brink of some of the economic disaster.
Yeah.
Things, the business regulations, the labor regulations that were passed last year that are chasing businesses out of our state.
Well, in our last couple of minutes here, is there anything particularly current that is on the docket for you guys right now that you think our listeners should be watching out for? Anything you'd encourage them to call in to their representatives and, speak their mind? Anything that's hot today?
Well, Republicans are working hard in negotiations to try to turn back some of the, really crazy policy that was passed by Democrats last year. Things like free health care for illegal immigrants, things like unemployment payment for seasonal school workers that are causing school districts to go, belly up and being forced to think about laying off teachers. It's things like that Republicans are still working to negotiate this week as we reach our budget deadlines. But that's the work in the trenches that we're trying to do, again, to try to responsibly turn our state, just nudge it back in the right direction so that we at least have a chance after 2026 to still save the state.
Well, it is amazing to me how the Democrats keep holding on to these the 80-20 issues. They're holding on to the 20% to the 80-20 issues. We saw, what was it, a shift to the right in, 95% of counties across the country. We saw it in Minnesota too. I mean, even though we didn't win the House back the way we would have liked, we've got a tie. It's amazing to see. And Walz in particular just doubling down on these things. Just in the news the other day, he was saying, damn right, we're for these policies. And, okay, you just lost hard. whatever. I hope he does double down on those policies. Well, anyway, Representative Niska, I really appreciate you calling in today and giving us a little bit of an update from St. Paul. Best of luck to you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.